I'm learning here Reb Nachman on Likutey Moharan, Moharan Siman Zayin on Eretz Israel. I don't know, some of you, if you're ever into that, you should get this book. All Reb Nachman's Torah on Eretz Israel is mamish gewalt. Okay, he says, Dark Ike Hagolos. He says, please know that to be in exile, Emunah, to be in exile means I don't really believe in it. I believe, not really, you know. But let's put it this way, anything which is not utmost real means I'm in exile, right? Listen, imagine I'm a chassid of this Rebbe, right? Let's assume. But I don't really think he's a Rebbe, right? So my being a chassid to this Rebbe means I'm an exile chassid, right? Let's say, for instance, I keep Shabbos, but I don't really believe in Shabbos, right? I'm doing it, I'm going through the motions. But I'm not so 100% convinced, even if it's only one little ounce in my heart. That means this Shabbos is an exile by me, you know. Let's take couples, you know. I'm married to my wife, and I'm not really two zillion% convinced that this is the right woman for me, right? That means my marriage is an exile, right? It's there, and everything is there, but it's not clear to me. Okay, now listen to this. He says, Emunah hu b'chinas tefillah. Now I want you to open your eyes to the deeper steps. If a person wants to test himself, how much do I mamish believe in God? Very simple. The question is, how much can I ask of God? You know, between people, on a very simple level, if I want to test my relationship to another person, the acid test is, how much can I ask of them, right? I need a favor. How much can I ask of another person, right? Listen, if I can ask somebody to walk barefoot from here to Yerushalayim, got to be a very good friend to me, right? Got to be a very deep relationship to me. Listen, if I can walk up to somebody and tell this person, hey, how are you, darling? Oh, your girl is so cute like sugar. She's so beautiful. Anyway, you know, between people, you know, really, we learned it a lot of times. If there was nothing I would not do for another person, that means our relationship is not in exile. Mom is completely free, right? Anything in the world, right? If I can do anything for God, and also God can do anything, I mamish believe that God can do anything for me. But if I have my doubts, I think God can do that much, and at a certain point, even God has to stop. But I mean, how much can I ask God, right? That means I'm in exile. Okay, but then everybody has to know there are two kinds of prayers. There is a prayer which is within the framework of nature. And then there is a prayer which is beyond nature. You know, let's say I'm asking God, can you please see to that the stock should go higher? You know, I have a cold, you know, Hashem help me, I should stop sneezing. You know, things like this, you know. Hashem give me enough money to pay the travel agency, you know, which we all need. Okay, this is within the framework of creation. But then he says, if your mamash need a miracle, so he says, for that, you have to believe that there is somebody beyond everything there is. And also, I want you to know something much deeper than this. The question is not how much you believe in God. The deepest question of believing in God is, well, what do you think God is all about? What do you think God is all about? You know, if you call me up and you tell me, can you do me a favor and give me $5? And I know that you need 100. So I'll ask you, why didn't you ask me for 100? So you say, I don't think you'd give it to me. So that's what you think of me? You think if I have $100 I won't give it to you? Means you don't know who I am, right? That means my neshama is in exile by you. Hello. Okay, so Reb Nachman says, what's the headquarters for believing in God? The headquarters for God is in the Holy Land. Everybody knows, the Gemara says, that if you're outside Eretz Israel, Daime K'mish Ein Elokah. So Reb Nachman translates Daime K'mish Ein Elokah. Daime means in your imagination, the way you imagine God, that isn't God. Right? But in the Holy Land is Daime. Think about, you know. It's a beautiful play on words, you know. Daime, your imagination is K'mish Yesh Lo Elokah. You know what God is all about, the wildest imagination. You know. Remember, Reb Nachman says the whole thing of mamish believing in God has to do with imagination, right? Mamish to imagine that there was a time there was no world, right? And suddenly one day, so to speak, God uttered 10 words over the world. It's way out imagination. Or to believe that Mashiach is coming is crazy imagination, right? Look at the world, you're crazy. There's a Jerusalem Post in Haaretz, the New York Times, and suddenly, you mean one morning, suddenly everything will change? A little Yidel will come on a donkey? You know, even just to imagine this, a person comes on a donkey. I want to throw in a little Belzer Torah, which is good to know. You know, it's a very beautiful story. The Heilige Reb Belzer had a very heavy operation in Vienna, and mamash life and death. So he said to the doctor, you know, I need a minion in case, God forbid, something happens to me during the operation. I want 10 Yidden to be there. So he says, listen, I'm a Jew. I can give you permission for 9 more Jews. Okay. So he got 9 Chassidim, you know, them ungeteen with gas masks. There was their hands, you know, and everything. So finally, 1 second before the operation begins, the Heilige Belzer says to this doctor, you believe in God? He says, yeah, I believe in God. He says, do you believe that the Messiah is coming? I says, you know, listen, you know, I'm a sophisticated person, you know. I mean, I don't believe in this kind of a thing, you know. A person will come on a donkey, you know, I mean, really, this is kid stuff, you know, not for a professor in Vienna. Okay, now listen to this. So the Heilige Belzer, you know, Mamash says to the doctor, okay, look at me. Okay, you know, the Holy Belzer fixes his eyes on him, and Mamash, the Belzer's dragging his soul out of his body, you know. He begins to shiver, and he realizes Mamash is passing out, you know. So at that moment, the Belzer stopped. So the Belzer says to the doctor, listen to me, brother. I'm not the Messiah, I'm far from it. He says, but I can get your soul out of your body in no time, you know. He says, do you know that someday somebody will come and do this to the whole world? Wake them up, you know. But you need a very way out imagination for that, you know. Okay, now I want you to know the deepest depths. And I really want you to think of it. how much am I connected to God's imagination when I'm sitting over a book and learning? Pretty good, right? It doesn't compare to the way I'm connected to God's imagination. I'm sitting in Eretz Israel, I'm plowing the fields, getting a little apple tree. Let me ask you something. Can you imagine what kind of imagination it took from God's side to create a world like this? It is unbelievable, right? What a world, right? Imagine what kind of imagination. Chaim. Imagination, just think of it, the whole thing, man, women, children, this whole weird creation of God, What an unbelievable imagination, right? Just to think of it, Think about, It's unbelievable. Okay, now everybody knows Eretz Israel is mamish the center of the world, right? The center of creation is right here. That means, when are you mamish connected to the imagination of God, the way He created the world, is in Eretz Israel. Right? You're getting out of Israel, you're in exile, means you don't see it anymore, right? You don't see this Gewalt thing, You see, what I want you to know, the deepest depth there is. And I think of it in a very deep way. Moshe Rabbeinu stood on Mount Sinai and he knew God, everything God wants him to do, right? But Moshe Rabbeinu wants to know one thing. What is God imagining, right? Imagine, everything a person is doing, everybody is thinking about. Or what are you imagining, right? What are you imagining, way out? For that, you have to be in Eretz Israel, right? Gewalt. So Moshe Rabbeinu was crying Gewalt, Rabbeinu Shalom, But anyway. And I want to say something very deep. You see, on a non-imagination level, if I ask you a favor and you don't do it, then you didn't do it. On the most way out imagination level, it's possible you didn't do it, and you still did it. See, Moshe Rabbeinu asked God, let me into the Holy Land. God says no, right? That means God didn't listen to him. On the way out imagination level, on the Mashiach imagination level, on the deepest imagination level, it's not true. Maybe I did. Maybe I did. I don't know. I want you to know the deepest depths, if I can say so. I can walk up to a girl, I love her very much, and I say, could you please marry me? She says, no problem. When are we getting married? September 30th. She rents a hall, she gets a rabbi, and she gets me a tuxedo. Everything is straight, right? Not 1 ounce of imagination, right? You can get married like this. You rent a house in Long Island, you have a car, everything. But then I'll tell you something else, way out. I can ask this girl, I love her the most, can you please marry me? And she says, you know something? I really can't. But I love you so much. It is possible on an imagination wedding level. Unbelievable wedding, right? Me and her. Unbelievable, right? That means on a way out Messiah imagination level, it's much deeper than, okay, so I made him. Okay, now Reb Nachman begins to say, it says, Shchoin Eretz Emunah. Forget about imagination. Mamish, the Holy Land has this holiness in it that I'm so connected to God that I have a little idea what God is all about. And the moment I know what God is all about, then I know there are no limits. Mamish, no limits. You know, Reb Nachman says, if there is one thing you think God could not do for you, you're a pagan. There's something God cannot do for you? Kabbalah, right? And you know, it's so deep, you know, Mamish, if you would be so convinced, and the deepest depths of our beings, you know, that there is nothing in the world God cannot do for us. This is what it means to be in the Holy Land. Mamish live in the Holy Land. Okay, so he says everybody knows that the gate of heaven is here in the Holy Land. What means the gate of heaven? Because here in Israel, all the gates are open. When you live in the land, it's clear to you what God is all about. Okay, now he says something very deep. This is very deep. For instance, when God spoke to us on Mount Sinai, he told everyone what to do exactly. All Jews have to do the same thing. Everybody knows there are 12, how do you say nusach in English? 12 versions of the prayer book. Each tribe had a different version. And we have only 2 prayer books, you know, Ashkenaz and Sfarad, because there are only 2 tribes, which we know, Benjamin and Yehuda. And the way I learned in Chassidus, I'm not sure, maybe Zalman correct me, that Benjamin had Nusach Ashkenaz and Yehuda had Nusach Sfarad. So therefore basically Nusach Sfarad is a little bit closer to Mashiach. Although I heard that Shuvas Chasam Seufe Mamish writes, Mamish Punkt verkehrt, that the emisse al-pi Kabbalah is Nusach Ashkenaz, you know, because the Mamish Chachma Ashkenaz is a real great Kabbalist, you know, because someone wrote Chasam Seufe, he was down Nusach Ashkenaz and he was Mamish a great Mekubal. Okay, I don't know, doesn't matter. So he says, why is it that praying is so individual? Because praying is what you believe in God. And believing in God, you know, is the most individual thing in the world. Because you know what it means to believe in God? That means how much God reveals to me what He is all about. Because God doesn't reveal Himself in the air. You know, God has a show on Channel 13 and you watch it. Mamish, you know, one more deepest thing in the world. The way God reveals Himself is obviously not even via books. God reveals Himself to you via the Holy Land, right? What do you do in the Holy Land? You plow the field, you live, you eat, you sleep. That kind of a deep revelation is the deepest depth there is. It is the most secret, and it's very much the most individual. Okay, so what does it mean to get out of exile? To get out of exile is mamish to believe in praying again. You know, friends, I don't have to tell you, it's unbelievable. Salman was talking about it last Shabbos when I was here a little bit before we began to daven. What's the problem today with Yiddishkeit? The problem is not that there's not enough learning going on, although there should be more learning. The problem is there is mamish no praying going on. There is no place where the mamish pray, right? Well, you know something, my brother and I once walked into a shul to daven, and we chuckled a little bit. So the rabbi sent the shamus to us. He says, if you keep on chuckling, you remove the whole synagogue from the neighborhood, you know. It was supposed to be a joke because of chuckling, you know. But it was for real. He was embarrassed that there are 2 kids standing there. and chuckling when they daven, you know. It's all over the world, you know. Okay, I'm not saying all over. Okay, there's some people that daven. But I remember one time in the House of Love and Prayer, without saying anything bad, 2 Reform rabbis walked in Shabbos morning to shul, and Mamish's kids were davening, Mamish, tears were flowing. So this rabbi says to me, you know, suddenly I see he's walking up by Kel Odin, he's running out. I thought maybe somebody hurt his feelings. I went and I said, listen, friend, we're just in the middle. He says, I feel very embarrassed. This is not the way to pray. He was crying and tears. What's there to cry about, you know? I asked him, you know, I says, God forbid if your child is sick, how do you pray? God forbid, should never happen. So you just read a little bit prayers, or your mamish pray. What's this so hard to understand? Shabbos morning, you pour out your heart before God. He says, I'm not accustomed to that, you know. I said, okay, listen, God be with you in your way. But this is going all over the world. Okay, the truth is, okay, now listen to this. Everybody knows, where is it hardest to daven, you know? You know somewhere? By the holy wall, right? The mamish don't let you daven, you know? The mamish, because mamish, this is mamish, they had, I don't know if someone who told Zalman's story last night, it was unbelievable, you know?
I'd like to hear from you.
L'chaim. The story is that 10 years ago I was in Paris, and there was a little hippolyte, Daniel, real hippolyte, you know, he was into everything, and he was playing guitar with me. Then this little holy hippolyte came to Eretz Israel, one way or the other. I lost touch with him. Suddenly last night we come to the holy wall. There's my brother hippie, the hippie Daniel, with a long beard, mama sweet like sugar. He was mama shining, right? Mama shining. Mama heilige neshama. And he just came from his wedding with his little bridal, little Svartische girl, you know. Mama's cute like sugar, you know. They were so cute, you know, you could eat them up, they're so cute, you know. Mama's heilig. So what can you do? So we gathered around them, started singing like Yeshoma, saying a few things. Okay, the police is coming. You know, from the holy wall, because the rabbi there has government authority. He comes to tell us that...
You didn't see that. Well, before the police came, he walked around.
Yeah, I see him all the time.
He walked around. Did anyone up and sent
You know, steht bei Bildern bei Jelech Schäfer, you know, auf Deutsch sagt man, ist rumgeschlichen, you know, he's going like this, and he thinks, you know, he has like eyes in his back of his head, you know, looking back. Let's put it this way, forget about Rabbi Getz. The holy wall, where thousands of people come. You know how much the hearts of people are open when they come to the holy wall? This is the turning point in their lives, right? Because where is everybody coming from? Out of exile, and they're the one to get free, right? So what's going on with the holy wall if you're in exile in America or in South Africa? Mamish, there they put you in chains, not just exile, you know. I tell you something way out, you know. Not what's going on there? Yeah. Anyway, you want to know something crazy? I think I told Zalman, maybe some of you were there. You know, mamish, after the 6-day war, you know what happened? The first few Shabbos, when there was no mechitza yet, you know? Was no mechitza yet. Nothing. Was people just, I'm sorry. People just came and davened. You know, I'm telling you something. There were people there who can testify to that. There was mamish hugging and kissing going on, you know, by the wall. You know, it was mamish like mamish, everybody is mamish standing before God. What now? Okay, but don't run away too far now. Okay, listen to this crazy thing. I have a distant cousin, a Yeke, he's a cute Yekele. And I know him all the years. I see him, whenever I see him, I say hello to him. He says hello to me. I met him by the Holy Waters, few Shabbases. Mamish, his heart was so open, he hugged me and kissed me. He says, Mamish, who's the Shavi? Yeah. Anyway, those few Shabbases, I kissed him. Then the greatest thing happened. The first Shabbos was a mechitzi again. But you know how it affected him. I wanted to hug him and say good Shabbos. He shrieked, like he went all the way back to Frankfurt, He couldn't get far away. He says, was ist denn los? What do you mean, was meinst du, was ist los? He's really good Shabbos. Sagt er, na ja, aber nicht so stürmisch. Not to so much storm, I mean, say good Shabbos, It's very strange, I want to tell you something very, very deep. There has to be one place in the world where I can let loose, right? There is something in the world that I want to let loose. But the question is, can I let loose in a holy way? Because if not, I have to let loose in an unholy way. I have to yeah? Come here, love, sweetest. Ilana basically.
Hey, Nachman, שב איתנו כמה דקות. אל תבא איתי להופעה, רק דבר איתי.
I was learning it last week. How much we are into holding back all the time, We are so much into holding back, all of us. Maybe not you, all of us. How much holding back all the time? You remember last week was Chamisha Saba'av? You think girls are dancing, and I see my soulmate. I walk up to the girl, and I say, you're my soulmate, and I want to marry you. That's it. And she says, okay, let's go, right? But let me ask you something on a very normal level. Why don't we do it? Why don't we do it? And even in the Holy Land, they only did it twice here, Chamisha Ba'av and Chamisha on Yom Kippur. You know what was going on? Very simple. Because we are living in a world where everything is holding back, Everything is holding back. And you know what happens if you don't hold back? People get frightened and run away, right? Mamish run away. You know what davening is? Reb Nachman says one thing. You know what davening means? Davening means, mamish, I'm not holding back. Because if I'm holding back on my davening. Why am I holding back on my davening? Because I'm holding back on my believing in God, right? Do you know how crazy one has to be to mamish to believe in God in the most unbelievable way, right? Means I'm mamish letting loose, right? I am mamish letting loose. There's no chains. I'm not in exile. Unbelievable, right? So now listen to me, sweetest friends. God says to Avraham Avinu, I want you to open your heart in a very deep way. I'm giving the land to your children. So Avraham Avinu says to God, "B'mo edek yirashena." How will I know that you give it to them? And because of that, we have to go into exile. You know what that means? When I ask somebody, when someone says to me, "I love you," and I ask, "Can you give me a sign?" It's already a bad scene. Because if I would believe in you infinitely, Mamish infinitely. What are you asking for signs? And what is a sign? You see, only in a straight world you give signs, you write letters, you confirm your flight, right? You want it in writing. Imagine God says to Abraham, I'm giving you the land, and Abraham says to God, okay, can you please sign me this paper here? I want to have something in my hands to show my wife Sarah that, Okay, so you have to realize something. Avraham Avinu on the highest level, right? I'm sure what Reb Nachman is saying here is that the fixing of receiving the Holy Land is, I want you to open your heart in the deepest depths. Avraham Avinu asked God, give me a sign that we'll have the Holy Land. So you know what the fixing is? The fixing is that all the signs show that God is not giving me the Holy Land. That's the fixing. The fixing is everything is showing you God doesn't want you to be in the Holy Land. I mean, let's face it, we are already in Eretz Israel, it's still making us trouble, right? We are already by the Holy Wall in America, the greatest, most beautiful country in the world, doesn't recognize Jerusalem, right? If you're a straight guy, you say God is giving you signs. Okay, listen, I'm trying to be religious, and I say, God, give me a sign that I should be religious. So God gives you a sign, don't be, right? Mamish, right? Listen, I love this girl very much, and then I say, God, give me a sign, should I marry her? God say, okay, Maslow, I'll give you a sign, you shouldn't marry her. You're asking, do you need signs? Let loose, Go crazy. Daven, Okay, now I want you to know the deeper steps. Even if I see that God answers my prayer, this is also a straight thing. Because I need God to answer my prayer to know that God heard me. And if God doesn't answer my prayer, you mean chas v'sholom, you don't believe He heard you? So last week we're learning, Moshe Rabbeinu is teaching us what davening is. So Moshe Rabbeinu is teaching us, remember once in my life I mamish prayed like mad, please let me into the Holy Land. And God says to me now, gewaltet I daven, right? Gewaltet I daven. Gewaltet I daven. And gewaltet, I know that God heard me, right? Gewaltet, I know that God heard me. Deepest depths. Because everybody knows you know what I was thinking last week? Hard to know, we were learning it, remember? God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, he's standing there, and Eretz Israel is east, right? So God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, look north and south, and from there you see the Holy Land. Means face the other side of the world and look in the Holy Land, right? So you know what I want to tell you is that, we learned it last week, I think. I don't remember myself anymore. Don't know anymore. Okay, let's just finish this thing here. What's sweet? Listen, if you're standing here and God says, look here and you'll see neither, it's crazy, right? Because I don't know, it was very deep in my heart 2 weeks ago, I don't remember it anymore. What gave me the feeling is that God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I want you to see the land the way the Yidden from there looking at it, Not only to see the land, but you're there, What's the bigger, so you see the Holy Land? Yeah, you have to. So, no, to Abraham, God says, go there and I'll show you the land there. To Moshe Rabbeinu, God says, look the other way and you'll see it from the other side. Yeah?